The Water Tower. A Chicago horror story, United States. This is the story of Harlow Heights, an old 3-story apartment building on the south side of Chicago, Illinois. During the day, it looked like any other aging brick building on the block. Cracked paint, rusted fire escapes, a lobby that smelled like old carpet and someone else's cooking. But after dark, something happened in that building that nobody could explain, and nobody who lived there would ever forget. Night with Stars. The building had 5 residents. Ryan Mitchell and his wife Jade lived on the 2nd floor. Their neighbor across the hall was Derek Shaw. The building's night security guard was an older man named Earl. And the landlord, who lived on the ground floor and had owned the building for 30 years, was a heavy-set man named Mr. Vernon. Office building. For about a month, strange things had been happening. All of them connected to water. Droplet. It started small. A faucet that turned itself on at 3 in the morning. A bathroom mirror that dripped condensation in the shape of letters nobody wanted to read. Water that turned ice cold without warning in the middle of a hot shower. Things that each resident explained away individually, but that together formed a pattern that was becoming impossible to ignore. Fearful face. One night around 11:30 p.m. Ryan was in the living room when he heard a crash from the kitchen. Jade came running out, her face pale, face screaming in fear. "Ryan, I was filling a glass at the sink and something grabbed my hand. Not bumped it, grabbed it. The water went ice cold and I felt someone standing directly behind me. I turned around and there was nobody there." Ryan put down his book. He looked at her face and decided this was not the right moment to suggest she was overtired. "Let me go check the kitchen." He checked. Everything looked normal, but the temperature near the sink was noticeably colder than the rest of the room. He did not mention this to Jade, anxious face with sweat. The next morning, he told Derek about it in the hallway. Derek leaned a grinding, metallic, reluctant sound, the sound of old machinery working harder than it should. Ryan looked up from his chart. The sound continued for a moment, then stopped. "That elevator's been doing that," Priya said without opening her eyes. He had thought she was asleep. "Every night this week. Always after 2. "Old building," Ryan said. "Uh-huh." She didn't sound convinced. Neither did he. Then from the stairwell at the opposite end of the corridor, footsteps. Slow. Shuffling. The specific sound of feet being dragged rather than lifted with each step. Ryan stood up. In Ward 9 at 2:17 a.m., footsteps in the stairwell meant something was about to need his attention. The stairwell door opened. The hospital janitor, a woman named Beverly who had worked Mercy General's night shift for 11 years and who Ryan had spoken to exactly 3 times and found unsettling all 3 times, was standing in the doorway. She looked at him with no particular urgency. "Doctor," she said, "you should be ready. Something's coming up." She said it the way you'd say weather's turning. Factual, tired, neither concerned nor unconcerned. Then she went back into the stairwell and the door closed behind her. Ryan and Priya looked at each other. The overhead lights went out. Skull. Emergency lighting kicked in, red, dim, the specific quality of light that turns everything wrong-colored. The monitors kept running. The building did not stop, but the light in the nurse station was now the color of a warning sign. "Power outage," Priya said. "Generators should have caught it instantly." Ryan was already at the breaker panel on the wall. They did. This floor specifically. Why this floor specifically? He didn't have an answer. Then from below, a scream. Not the medical kind. Not the controlled, directed call for help that hospital staff are trained to produce and that patients produce when they are in specific identifiable pain. A raw scream. A mother's scream. The kind that contains every. Listen to the rain hammer the roof and watch the empty streets of Hollow Creek through the windshield and thought about what a strange place this was. Then he heard the bells. Skull. Not church bells. Not wind chimes. Something smaller. Something ankle height. The kind of sound that comes from decorative bells sewn onto the hem of a dress. Rhythmic. Deliberate. Moving through the rain. Daniel rolled down his window slightly and looked out. The street was empty. The bells got louder. Then a voice, low, wrong, coming from directly behind his car. Time to go. The laughter that followed was not human. Daniel didn't remember making the decision to get out of the car. He just found himself standing in the rain with the door hanging open and something pulling him backward by his collar, and the last thing anyone in Hollow Creek heard was his voice cutting off mid-scream. Face screaming in fear. By morning, the only evidence that Daniel Webb had ever been in Hollow Creek was his rental car, still parked on Route 9, driver's door open, interior soaked through, with deep drag marks in the mud leading away from it toward the old Hargrove ruins at the edge of town. His body was never found. Skull. The Hargrove ruins had been the central feature of every Hollow Creek nightmare for 30 years. They sat at the far end of Creek Road, the collapsed remains of what had once been the grandest house in 3 counties, burned to the foundation in 1994 under circumstances that the official report called undetermined, and that every Hollow Creek resident called something else entirely. Don't go near the ruins. Every parent in Hollow Creek told every child from the time they were old enough to understand the words. Don't go near the ruins. Don't go near them in the day. Never go near them at night. Never go near them in the rain, anxious faced with sweat. The town council, led by Mayor Gerald Stanton, who had held the position for 22 years, reinforced this with official policy. No trespassing signs. A chain link fence. Ryan laid the baby on the examination table under the NICU lights, and the world contracted to exactly the size of one small chest that wasn't moving. Saturation monitor on. The screen showed 63%. That can't be right, Priya said. She was already reaching for the mask. That's not compatible with. I know. Ryan was already on the mask, already adjusting flow, already doing the things he had trained for, the things he believed in. Oxygen, pressure, the physics of a body that needs help doing the thing bodies do automatically. Increase the flow. All the way. 63%. 63%. 63%. The number didn't move. Ryan had never seen a number not move like that. Not stay fixed with that absolute certainty, as if the monitor had received its information from somewhere final and was simply reporting it. Priya's hands were shaking. She was a good doctor. He had watched her work. He knew she was good. And her hands were shaking the way hands shake when the body decides that what it's seeing is not something it can process normally. Talk to me, Ryan said. What are we missing? I don't know. The response to oxygen should. It's not. He looked at her. Chest compressions. Now. She started. Ryan moved to the blood draw because he needed information. Because information was what you used when everything else was not working, because the body always has something to tell you if you listen in the right way. He drew the sample. He turned the syringe to check it. He stopped. The blood in the syringe was black. Not dark red. Not venous versus arterial dark. Black. A deep, thick, viscous black that moved too slowly when he tilted the syringe, that clung to the sides in a way that blood does not cling. That had a quality he had no clinical term for, because there was no clinical term for it, because this was not a clinical situation. Face screaming in fear. He set the syringe on the tray. Carefully, Priya stopped compressions. She had seen it. The syringe fell. Not knocked. Fell, as if the tray had tilted. He couldn't hold back anymore. Tell me something. Why is this diner open at 2 in the morning in the middle of these woods? Who even comes here? Everyone went silent after his question. The lantern flame flared once, then dimmed. Son, the people who come here are the ones who've lost their way, and the ones the night itself has called for. Nobody called me here. My grandfather called me. The man on the bench smiled again, faintly. Ethan was starting to feel genuinely strange now. An unnamed fear had settled into him. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through outside. The lantern shook violently, and at that exact moment, from somewhere behind the diner, came the faint sound of a woman crying. The cup nearly slipped from Ethan's hand. He turned, startled, toward the dark woods behind them. What was that sound? Who's out there? Is someone crying? For a moment, silence fell over the diner again. Son, the dark of night carries a lot of sounds. Not every sound is real. But sir, I heard it clearly. Someone was crying. Sometimes a tired mind makes its own sounds. Maybe it was just your imagination. Ethan looked back again. There was nothing now but darkness. Deep, silent, terrifying darkness. The wind picked up again. The tree branches swayed as if someone were hiding among them, laughing softly. Ethan grabbed his bag quickly. No, I should get going. My grandfather will be waiting. Millbridge is straight ahead from here, right? The old man said nothing, just pointed silently down the path ahead. Walk straight ahead, but don't look back. Ethan paused for a moment. But why? What happens if I look back? Because some things can only be seen from behind. Ethan's throat went dry. He didn't say anything else. He just walked quickly out of the diner. The night had grown even deeper. Ethan walked fast, the sound of that crying still echoing in his ears. Several times he felt as though someone was walking behind him. But remembering the diner owner's words, he was still looking. The sun through the willow branches was making patterns on the ground that shifted as the branches moved. What actually happens there? 2 girls went out there 3 months ago, Lily said quietly. Haley Cross and Savannah Pierce. They never came back. Their stuff was found on the road. That's it. That's the story. Crying face. Natalie looked at the willows for another moment, then looked away. Are those mango trees at the end of the road? Peach trees, Lily said. They're incredible. But Natalie, just for 10 minutes, Natalie said. To get peaches. In the daytime. While the sun is still up, faced with steam from nose. Lily looked at the sky. The sun was lower than she wanted it to be. 10 minutes, she said. And then we go? No argument. Absolute no argument, Natalie agreed. The peach trees were on a small hill just before Willow Road began. The peaches were exactly as good as advertised, warm from the sun, sweet and dripping. They filled Natalie's jacket pockets and Lily's backpack. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Okay, Natalie said. You were completely right. These are the best peaches I've ever had in my life. I know, Lily said. She was already looking at the sky. The sun had gotten significantly lower while they were picking. The quality of the light had changed from gold to orange. We need to go right now. Taking the last few. Natalie, right now? I am not kidding. Anxious face with sweat. They started back down the hill toward the main road and walked for 5 minutes. And the main road didn't appear. Natalie stopped, looked around. The trees were the same in every direction. The path they had come down was the same path they were walking on. She was certain of it. But the town lights that should have been visible through the tree line were not visible. Lily, I know. Lily's voice was very controlled. We should be at the road by now. I know. We took the same path we came on. I know, Natalie. Lily stopped walking. Look ahead, face screaming in fear. Natalie looked. The 3 weeping willows stood against. Had been at peace. Ghost. Another wedding, she said. Her voice was the sound of rain on old wood. Another bride. Another groom. She looked at Marcus. Come with me. No, Kayla said. She stepped between the rain bride and Marcus. Face screaming in fear. The rain bride looked at Kayla with an expression that went through several things quickly. Surprise. Recognition. Something that was almost curiosity. You're not from here, she said. I grew up here, Kayla said. I've been gone 15 years. I came back. She kept her voice steady through considerable effort. And I know what this looks like. I know what everyone in this room thinks this is. But I've been standing at that window watching the storms come in for a year, and I don't think you're a monster. I think you're someone who was hurt very badly and never got justice for it. Broken heart. The rain bride went completely still. My name is Kayla, Kayla continued. What's yours? The church hall was absolutely silent. 40 people holding their breath. Marcus behind Kayla with his hands on her shoulders. Beverly standing 2 feet to the left ready to do something. She wasn't sure what, if she needed to. The rain bride looked at Kayla for a very long time. Sandra, she said finally. The word came out like it had been held in for a long time. My name was Sandra Hargrove. Crying face. The story came out in pieces. Sandra Hargrove had grown up in the grandest house in Hollow Creek. She had fallen in love with a man named Thomas, a good man, a kind man, a man who worked at the mill and had nothing but was saving everything he made. They had planned to marry in July 1994. Broken heart. Mayor Stanton, who had been a much younger man in 1994, newly elected, building his power in the way that men like him build power in small towns, had wanted Sandra for himself. He had wanted the Hargrove house, the Hargrove money, the Hargrove name. Sandra had refused him, repeatedly, clearly, without ambiguity. Pouting face. 3 nights before the wedding, Gerald Stanton had arranged. Presentation, intervention, outcome. The clinical facts are what they are. Priya nodded. She already knew that's what he would say. It was the right answer. It was the only answer that fit inside the world that medicine operates in. The monitors beeped. Normal, steady, rhythmic. The sound of bodies doing what bodies do. At 4 a.m. the lights came back on fully. The whole floor, at once, as if a switch had been thrown somewhere. Normal light. The ward looked like a ward again, not like a place where something had been weighing decisions. Just a hospital corridor. Tired people. Machines. The accumulated smell of antiseptic and illness that Ryan had stopped noticing months ago and noticed again now. At 7 a.m., when the day's shift came on, baby James Harmon's saturation was 97%, and he was receiving a feeding and making his displeasure about the whole experience loudly known to everyone within range. Ryan drove home in the Chicago morning and sat in his car in the parking lot of his apartment building for 20 minutes. He watched the city wake up around him. People walking dogs, cars starting, a school bus moving down the block. The specific, ordinary miracle of a day beginning. He thought about a room that had gone cold with no AC running. He thought about blood that was the wrong color and moved the wrong way. He thought about the number 63 that had held until he spoke to a room the way you speak to something that is listening. He thought about Beverly on the corridor at 2:17 a.m. saying something's coming up. He went inside and slept for 6 hours and dreamed of nothing. When he went back to Mercy General that evening, he checked on baby James first thing. The baby was asleep. Color good. Saturation 98%. The monitors reading everything they were supposed to read. Ryan stood at the window of the NICU and looked at this small person who had been, at 2:17 that morning, something else entirely, and was now just a baby, 4 days old, healthy, beginning the long ordinary project of being alive. He thought, some accounts are non-negotiable. Some aren't. He did not know how he had known which kind tonight was. He did not know how he had known what to say or why saying it had worked. He did not know what Beverly knew or had seen in 11 years on Ward 9. He knew what he had done. He knew what the outcome was. In medicine, outcome is what you document. He went to start his shift. Hospital. The end goes.